Hi, I'm Onion. I had a lot of plans for a real build guide, but they kind of fell through in the last few moments because of a slight oversight, also known as I don't know how to fucking read. So this is a long-winded way of me saying that this is not a build guide. This is more of like a declaration of trying to shoehorn a mechanic. That mechanic being Stagpede TM. So with that being said, in the pursuit of wanting to be different, we're going to try to do something different, and by playing the meta thing first to carry our early game and then hot swapping to something obviously substantially worse. If it wasn't already obvious, by the way, this is your warning. This is an untested build. It is completely untreaded water. Be advised, it's probably going to suck, or it might be the best build ever. So anyway, with that being said, let's talk about the concept. We are going to try and craft an auto bombing playstyle from the Spirit Walker Ascendancy using their stags and their innate mechanic of spawning a boatload of them after you move 20 meters to do big damage and blow up things with larger explosions from the heralds and armor explosion, all while spamming one button to map and fly around the map. And that's just gonna blow other things up, which is gonna chain other explosions and basically nuke the entire screen. I plan to achieve this by using Thunder's Leap for now, but I want to experiment with other options once I can actually play the build. Obviously, I can't do that. For single target, ideally I want to be able to abuse the mechanic of spawning a lot of the stags by moving around really fast to get those stags to just spawn that much faster. But for now, Primal Strikes has really good synergy with the stags dropping shock round consistently, which should be up like 100% of the time once you have unity from the third lab, and a built-in 50% exposure on targets as well, which gives us a lot of damage for the bosses since we're doing a lot of elemental damage too. We are also going to use the Berserk plus Warband aura to give us a bit more single target damage since we have a lot of attack damage going on and we can stack the glory up pretty quickly. I also want to put Electrocute on the stags instead of going their typical shock route, because since we're using Primal Strikes, I'm going to be removing these shocks constantly in order to hit harder using the secondary effect of the third hit, which just does a lot of extra damage. This is also a pretty good time to use Full Take Mark since I'm going to be electrocuting the bosses. This will give us a large amount of lightning damage. At least that is the theory. I want to further abuse this ascendancy by using the Soaring Ground for Onslaught, plus increased damage by dodge rolling right before the fight and throwing one projectile to get the ground buff effect. This also gives us a nice little boost to our evasion with the lingering effect. Maybe this is going to be automatable later with a cast on crit setup or a cast on elemental ailment setup. I don't know yet. Obviously, I got to test that first. The bear also makes us tankier by giving us a slight 2% max HP regen effect, intimidating roar, making the enemy take 10% increased damage, which is also, by the way, a pretty nice more damage multiplier, and taking 8% of the damage for us, which makes us that much tankier. This also stacks with effects like Ramir's Requital and Captivating Companionship to redirect 23% of the damage from us to our minion. This is also going to be where we add in Brutus's Brain to the minion to make sure that he can't even die, so we're just taking 23% less damage all the time. Furthermore, we're going to stack Evasion plus Deflect. Hopefully with the new Evasion changes, it's good. We're going to find out. But it basically is going to let us rarely get hit, and if we somehow get hit, we will just take a large chunk less damage. I think at base it's 40% less, and you can get extra amount of deflect percent. At least that's the theory. The POB has some decent gear in it. It has a 4-mod weapon with physical damage as extra, with some attack speed and a decent amount of fizz-based damage, which is just overall a good basic spear to use. Maybe we can get one pretty easily. I know crafting is going to be a bit rough, but that's again the theory. We'll have to see after the changes. There is no plus to skills at all on any of the gear, and I went for a Hiri's Ire, which did just get nerfed. Maybe less people are going to want it because of that, but also I know the Fub Gooners and the Twister build players are going to want this thing because it just gives a large amount of good damage, and also the evasion on it would probably be a bit less than last league, but that buff where you're getting it doubled if you haven't been hit recently is also pretty nice, especially when you have a high amount of evasion. Honestly, whatever. I have a feeling with the new endgame stuff, making money won't be that hard, even if Hiri's Ire is expensive, because frankly, there's so much new league mechanics and farming is going to be so much better. There's so much more target farming. Crafting might be a bit rough, but we'll see. I plan to use the Death Stance Keystone until I get a Palm Scepter, probably the ice one, for another large DPS boost over the action speed buff from Dance with Death. This will smooth out the cold damage for Herald of Ice, and I want to get a lot of physical base damage for armor breaking so the explosions work well consistently for huge map clear. Hopefully I can find a way to make stacks work super well, but if it doesn't work, it is still a Spirit Walker and it is still a Huntress, so there are so many broken builds that I'm able to reroll to in case something goes wrong. If you are for some reason crazy enough to follow in the psychotic nonsense I'm about to do, there are a lot of broken builds to reroll to. I'm sure it's not hard to pivot off of this into something that is like Twisters or Lightning Spear or Explosive Spear with some other nonsense. I don't know. Later on, there will be some late game scaling options like a Garokans or Rakiatas to get a lot of inversed penetration and or get a lot of critical damage scaling. So I'm sure that it's pretty easy to figure it out if you want to go that route. I'm probably going to try to do that if I get that far. Yeah, well, we're just going to do our best to make it work and see what happens. Anyway, that's the build idea. I'm sorry I don't have much in the way of footage. It's just a very conceptual idea right now, and I can't test a lot of it. So once again, you can take the POB with a grain of salt. You can ignore the gear, or you can take it like the gospel if you want. There's no leveling guide on this at all. There's so many different ways to level. I'm probably just going to do Twisters and call it a day. But also grenades are pretty good too. You can level with grenades. You can also level with Lightning Spear. And if you're going to be meta, Twisters is broken. So there you go. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great league start. Bye.